one. I forgot to record.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the first questions you guys had was what is the through date on the received payment screen? Oh, you guys are opening up my service charges. I just graded those. Okay, so in the receive payment screen, the purpose of that is for the budget. So if you have certain customers that have ACH for budgets, the way that I-21 handles is we're creating budget invoice numbers. That's not really AR, but it's a holding place because in order for you to apply it to a budget, the system needs to know that that's what it's for. So what you have to do is, who did I set up? Look up customer code Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
That one right here. You see how up at the top you have vendor refund?
Yes, and I was going to ask you about that today.
Okay, that would be just because I see it on the screen. That's when you have a draft that rather than you giving money to them, you're giving money back to the vendor is what that process is. So so the whole instead of you being able to put in a vendor negative deposit, I-21 does not allow that since you're receiving money you're receiving money. I said that backwards earlier, didn't I? It's when they're giving you back money. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. So in this case, go ahead and use Jimmy's code, the MCDOJI. Or Jimmy McDonald. I think you have two codes out there too. There we go. So I set Jimmy up with a budget and as well as an ACH. So we're going to so you know that there's a budget in there for $75 monthly for the next 10 months. And it's from July through April 1st of 2020. So let's go ahead and close this. Part of your ACH is that you can EFT ACH customers, but we needed a way for you to be able to select it in the ACH screen. And the way you see it here works the same way in the receive multiple payments where you'll be handling the ACH. So what I'm going to have you do is go to the customer hyperlink for Jimmy, and I'll show you the setup for that, just to make sure we kind of show both sides and how those transactions are going to get there. So go to the additional info up at the top and go to EFT information. So the only difference as far as setup for a budget ACH is down at the bottom where you have pull AR by. If a customer is an ACH, is a budget customer, and they want you to go ahead and pull their money from their account, you do have to set them up as budget amount. That's how it knows in the receive payment screen to bring those transactions in and create an ACH invoice code for budgets. So let's go ahead and close the screen, and then you can close the customer file as well. So those are the two setups for that. And then let's go ahead and you see where it says EFT budget? On the right side, it's a box right next to the through date.
Yes.
Yep. When you select that, the date defaults to today. If you click that date on the right side, that's the only time it's enabled, but if you were to uncheck EFT budget, you wouldn't be able to get in that field. So let's go ahead and check mark EFT budget again for me. And just for the sake of showing you what that date's going to do, I want you to change the date to 2 months from now or something other than today, but more in there you go.
Oops.
So then what that's going to do is it's going to show more EFT transactions on the screen. And the way you can tell is it actually gives it to you in the invoice number. So these are not posted invoices. It's just a holder, so that way if we do create an ACH for an EFT budget, we know what it was for. So now this is not the screen where you normally would process this, because unless you want to handle it one customer at a time. if you want to go through the whole ACH process, like I showed you in the past, which is doing it through receive multiple payments, it's the same concept, except now you have an additional filter because receive multiple payments shows all customers. So close this for me and let's go into receive multiple payments. So here you also have the same indicator. So let's go ahead and don't put a customer code as a filter. Select EFT budget for me. And then let's say we are going to pull the budgets for everybody that's due August 1st. Just because that's probably how we would normally handle that. Now, this is already defaulting. There's extra filters on the left side. So even though you're selecting EFT budget through date of August 1st, you still have to make sure that your dates on the left make sense. So if you wanted to, now this is contradicting. It's saying you want the due date July 12th. So really in this scenario, you may not even need the due date here in this screen. So you can remove this filter. And then because what that EFT budget is, all it's doing is it's saying show me those EFTs as well. Because you may want to draft regular invoices and EFTs together in the same file. Now, maybe you don't want to do that to kind of control more of what you're putting in the draft. You can filter by the invoice number because that's one way to kind of separate them. So go ahead and filter by invoice number column for me. And let's say you just want to do a file for EFTs only. So type in there EFT. Because that invoice number, any EFT budgets has that within the invoice number and then the date. So now what you would do is you wouldn't normally have all these previous months. You should only see like 1 month's worth as long as you were keeping track. So what you would do is select all of the ones that you want to draft and then go through the normal ACH process. So that's what that through date is for, is specifically for EFT budget customers. Do you guys have any questions on that?
Nope.
Nope? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So the next question on the list was how do we reverse service charges? We actually never went through how to service charge a customer. So we're going to go ahead and go through that now. Let's first confirm our service charge setup is correct. So under the maintenance section, let's go ahead and click service charges for me. And then just double click the first one because you really only have one service charge other than no service charges. So what this is saying is it's 18% annually, and then it breaks it down to what it is at the end of the month based off of that 18% annual charge. That minimum charge of $1 is different from the minimum amount due to charge. So what that $1 is saying is the same as Origin. Do not charge, don't create like a 10-cent service charge. It's going to be at least $1. And then the same thing with grace period. You guys are aware of what that is. And then the minimum amount due to charge is different. What that's saying is before you calculate a service charge, let's make sure they at least have a balance due of $100. So that's what that invoice is for, or that field is for, is the minimum amount due to charge. So now let's go ahead and close this screen and close the search service charges screen. If you go to on the left side under activity section, open up service charges for me, or it says service charge invoice. There you go. So I'm going to show you what the invoices look like, but then we'll still go through the process. Open, if you filter by posted column, I've already posted one. And then filter, does it let you do filter?
Filter. And then say no.
And say yes to this one, because there should be,
Okay.
I'm going to just look at the one. There you go. And then double click or open that service charge one. So now on top of other prefixes that we have from the system, you now are introduced to SC, which is the service charge. So if you ever needed to filter by invoice type or where it came from, you could do it by the prefix. And in this screen, it looks like it's double click or select and view invoice. I'm not sure. I've never tried double click here. So I'm just going to show you what the invoice looks like, and then we'll go back to the process. So what this is doing is it's taking the total balance times whatever is your service charge annually divided by 12, and then it comes up with the total of $6.91. Because you guys do service charge on balance, right? Not by invoice? Or do you do it by invoice? And I didn't look. I should have looked.
Not sure. I'm not sure either.
I just
That's
run
okay.
the calculate search function.
Okay. Here, let me see. I'm in the server now. I should have looked. I think by default we do service charge by balance, but yours is set
And I
to...
think that's probably what it was set up originally.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't touched it since we set it up.
Okay. Invoice and per customer. Yeah, it says service charge per customer. So that's
Okay.
the balance rather than by invoice. Okay, awesome. Make that invoice number column. Can you widen it if it looks like it's grayed out, so it may not let us. Okay. Balance as of, so it does give you some information of what it's for. So now, if you needed to, you know how you asked, how do you reverse the service charges? There's a couple ways to do it. You can either unpost the service charge and then delete it. I don't recommend that, or you just forgive it. So it depends how you want to handle it. So in this case, go ahead and close this screen for me. You can click the forgive button.
Oh, how cute. Can you do a bunch of those at one time?
You know what? You can pre-select. You can filter out.
Okay.
Payment invoice cannot be earlier than invoice SC post. Oh, it's because my calculation date was in the future. I was trying to mock a month-end process. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to post it today. You wouldn't normally get this error message if it was backwards. So I should have used a July 22nd date because it's trying to reconcile the AR balance, the actual date.
The 31st.
But yes, you can, right. So if you remove that posting equals yes, if you remove that filter, to answer your question, yes, you could. Just you multi-select and then click forgive. So in this case, you still have to post them, so it won't let you really do anything with it. You can delete it. But if you delete it, then it looks like you'd never ran the service charges. And then next month, it's gonna try and recoup that last month. So you do have to calculate the service charge. Otherwise, it's gonna think, hey, you know what? You haven't done service charges yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you forgive it, is there a posting routine to that?
Nope, that's it. This is the screen. So it's the forgive button.
So it's basically the same thing as an origin where you reverse the service charge. You don't have to post.
Exactly. So here, if you minimize this screen and go to batch posting for me. If you go to batch post, the little gear up at the top, you're going to see all the invoices from sales in here. So when you're doing month end, you probably will only have a few, but you would filter by transaction ID and type in ST. Or you can do transaction, Let's do transaction ID. And then type in S as in Sam, C as in cat for service charge. So then all of your posted service charges will be in here, and then that's your total at the bottom that it's going to post, and then you just go through the normal select all and post.
Okay. Do you forgive before you post, or can you forgive after you post?
You know what? I think forgive is after you post, because then if you forgive it, I think at one point in an original version of I-21, we did allow you to forgive first. But it's in this case, it's forgive, and then you can unforgive all after it's posting, because it needs to know those journal entries.
Yeah.
Let me see here. What I should have done a recent date. So we're going to try and delete one of those service charges. Open up the first one up at the top. You can, if that doesn't let you open it, there's an open button next to the export. There we go. We're going to delete this service charge, or the service charge invoice, and we're going to see if it's going to let us recalculate it. So it doesn't let you remove it from here. So once it's calculated, it's not deletable.
How about that undo button?
That's an undo from the last save.
Okay.
So let's see. Let's close this. Trying to think how we can trick the system. Maybe do an August transaction. Will it let us forgive it? Okay, so let's close this. Let's go ahead and calculate, and maybe, oh no, we need it to be, close this screen and go to calculate service charges. And let's see if it'll pick anything up if we make as of date. Change that to June 30. So all these dates, what this is saying is, hey, you know what? Calculate service charges as of June 30. If it's past due on that date, that's what I want you to calculate my invoices or my past due as of. The reason that was added was because some customers want their due date to be July 1st or their as of date as of July 1st, because technically it's not past due until the next day if you receive payment on the last day of the month. So that's why that was added. So in Origin, we didn't care. We just said as of the end of the month. That's why we make you guys do it, and before you post any new transactions. So in here, it doesn't matter. You can continue to post transaction and then do service charges, and it'll know based off of customer aging report and the date you select in here. The service charge date is the actual date of the service charge. So maybe you don't want it to be dated June 30. You want the invoice date to be July 1st. But that is what that's for, is a service charge date. So let's just go ahead and use June 30 as your date.
Both of these.
The service charge post date is the general ledger date. So again, a lot of these, we've had customers who are trying to mimic it like Origin work, and then they would come up and say, hey, you know what, but I want my GL date to be a different date than this. So we just say, you know what, you guys decide what dates you want to use. Include budget customers, you want to uncheck that. Otherwise, it's going to calculate service charges on customers that are past due on the budget. Hence, why we added, when you're receiving payment, that you select a proper budget month. Otherwise, it's going to try and calculate service charges on those budgets that hasn't been paid, even though they're technically paid, but the payment date is not matching the actual budget date that it was for. So if you don't want to have any of those issues, I would say uncheck that. And now from here, you would click preview. If you click process, that's going to create those service charges without you being able to view it. So preview just allows you to see it on the screen. So now, what this is going to do is, as of June 30, it's going to calculate the balances. Now, the fact that the reason why this is allowing us to do this is because we haven't posted those service charges from July 31st, so it thinks it hasn't happened. So in this case, as of June 30th, there's no stamp that it's already been part of a calculation, so it's allowing you to calculate prior. It gives you the total amount of records, meaning invoices it's going to create, and the total amount of the service charge that it's going to, for everybody combined. Now, you can scroll through and look at this, but what I would do is just make sure the calculation is right. Once when you're testing, just to make sure it makes sense. And then, assuming this is all correct, then what you would do now is just click process, and the process is actually going to go ahead and create those SC records for you. If you ever find it that the service charges and you need to mass delete, you'll have to call us because you don't want to delete those service charges one at a time unless there's only a few. But the fact that it doesn't look like we allow you to do it too, I think that's why they added the forgive. That's new because I thought we allowed you to, so they must have added some more controls.
Okay.
So now all service charge invoice historically, it won't be in the invoice grid just because that's just adding on. So we decided we'd just add a new tab for just service charges only. So this is just like any grids that we have. It'll show you all the records historically. So there's not like a delete. You'll just have to start filtering. So now let's go ahead and maybe go to batch post and let's try and post one of the records.
Which ones?
Yep. Let's select a few and then go ahead and post it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So then if you did want to post all, then you just select all like we did. So let's go ahead and close this. And then close that. So now you should be able to go to the service charge invoice. Do you normally, you guys have never sent out invoices for service charge, right? You just sent it as part of the statement?
Yeah, it's on the statement.
Okay. Okay.
And I do have a question. Like right now, when we run the statements, sometimes I think it has to do with the way it's set up that it's not supposed to charge less than $1.
Yep.
On the statement itself, it'll say that their service charge is 68 cents. But if you actually go look at it in iRely on their PPS screen, it says that their invoice account is $1. So the statement is actually being sent to them wrong. Is that something that's going to be fixed to go into this?
Oh yeah, that should be fixed in Origin too. Based off of what you're talking about right now, I would assume that that shouldn't be the case because the invoice should equal what the statement is showing.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me see here. All right. So now, does anybody have any questions about this grid so far and what it displays?
I don't think so.
We're good to go.
All right. So just because of what you asked me, let's see if we can find an invoice less than $1. But we may not have anything that would calculate less than that. But let's go ahead and sort the amount. Is it ascending? Oh, there's one right there. I see. Leroy Gales looks like it's only $1. So I bet that would have been.
Come down.
Yep.
Back up.
There we go. Oh, that works too. So Leroy Gales. So yeah, so that one is $1. We can see what the statement looks like, or I can, just to make sure that it's fixed, because if it's not, it'd be a bug. But since this is I-21, it wouldn't have, it'd be different anyways. It would just be fixed. Okay, so now, if you want to, go ahead and uncheck that for me and go to a couple of the ones that you posted to forgive them. All right. So I've already forgiven Diane Locklear, so it's not going to forgive it. Go ahead and click refresh for me.
Oh.
So if you select, let's select multiple like you just did, and go ahead and click forgive. All right, let's say you want to unforgive, and I don't know when you would do that, but let's go ahead and click unforgive for me. Maybe they did decide to pay their service charges after all, so you need the service charges back on.
That's good, because actually that does happen sometimes.
Okay, awesome. So then that's all you do there, and it does create a payment record for some form of record to adjust all of those. That's why it's trying to read the date of the payment versus the invoice, because it's trying to reconcile those two dates together. So that was a service charge. Do you guys have any additional questions on the service charges?
Not at the moment.
For right now?
No.
Okay. All right. So then the next part here is batch post. Do I need to show you where the service charge set up? I think that was in our customer training session, so you may not need that, do ya?
Don't. If
Okay.
we were going to
All
break
right.
it over, I think that's okay.
Okay. Okay, so the next question on this list was, how will customer refunds be handled for cash, check, and MCV transactions? I assume, so tell me what the scenario is for these. Somebody
Okay,
comes
so-
in and you're just giving them back money?
Like if a customer comes in, they bought a part for some reason and have decided to return it,
Okay.
we have to be able to refund them, and it's in Origin, it's not an easy process, and it's not easy to figure out which one you're supposed to use. So we need to be, especially with like MasterCard Visas, because that actually comes out of the settlement report.
Okay.
If you could show us how we're supposed to treat those.
Okay. So if you were to just say, let's go to the invoices grid, and if they're just returning a product, it could be any product is what you're saying. It's not necessarily tied to a specific sale, because they may be only sending back one and not all five, for example.
Right. So we've already run the transaction, like say 2 weeks ago. We've sold them the product. Okay. It's gone through IRLI as an invoice and then been paid. So they brought one back, and we need to give them their money back, and we also need to make that transaction flow through I-21.
Okay. So in this case, I assume that you're putting back the inventory in the system, like you need to increase inventory again.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah.
Okay. So the system needs to know that you're returning back the product. So let's go ahead and click New for me. That's okay. Go ahead and open that. That's fine. There is a process refund button in the screen. If it's already been paid, it looks like. But I'm trying to figure, most of the time, though, it's not the full amount. So I'm trying to figure out what that. So click New and create a credit memo for me. I didn't show you that you guys can do a duplicate on that, did I? Close your screen and open up the invoice again. Because Origin didn't have this, and I was pretty happy when I-21 let me do it. So let's say you find the original invoice. You can duplicate an invoice and turn it into a credit memo.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh. Yeah.
So then you can just adjust the shipped amount. So let's say if it was just one that you're returning, or however many. And then let's go ahead and post this. Just be careful with dates. I think it defaults to today's date when you're duplicating. So just make sure you change that, since majority of the fields are already updated for you.
Good, because you'll know when they brought it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
So I think right now in Origin, what we usually do is a credit memo to get it back into inventory, and then have to go look at my notes.
Yep.
We don't do it very often, but
Uh-huh.
it was like we have an item number for MasterCard Visa returns or for cash returns, and we just invoice it that way. And it's only in certain cases.
So you're saying that, like, so this right here is putting the inventory back in. So it's not
Right.
quite anything to do with payment yet. So but you guys are doing a credit memo too, right? To make sure that the the inventory is back into the system?
Yes.
So this would primarily be, Tina, you're talking about cash sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So then even on a cash sale,
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, right now I do a credit memo for what was sold to put it back in inventory. Then I invoice for return MasterCard Visa to wash the refund amount if it was a MasterCard Visa.
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
let me see something.
And I just don't know if there's a simpler way in the new system to handle it. And then we have to subtract it off. Yeah, because there's going to have to get the deposit to work out right. In the past, we've just subtracted it off manually when it's a MasterCard Visa, but now we're going to have to run that MasterCard Visa into I-21 to get the deposit, cash management.
Correct.
Deposit.
Right. Yep. So then now what you're doing is you're adjusting, you're refunding back the, let me see.
Credit card. Uh-huh.
So what we needed to do is show negative in cash as in undeposited funds, is what you're saying essentially, in order for it to net out.
Right.
Yeah, which I guess we could do like as a overage shortage situation.
No, they're trying to think if they're...
I'll go to the wrong account.
Yeah, GL.
Well, you know what? Click that process refund for me. That was added, I think, in 19.1. Customer should be a vendor too. So what it's trying to do is create a vendor file, but that's not you, and you writing them a check, but that's not what you want.
Mm-mm.
That's you actually writing them.
I think with most cases, if it's a cash refund, we do try and end up writing the check if possible. It's just the MasterCard Visa where it becomes a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because generally, don't we try and, if they want to have requested a refund and they paid with cash,
Then we give them a check.
occasionally we'll take it out of petty cash and give it because we don't want to shorten the
But
drawer.
that's
But if the MasterCard is Visa, you wouldn't write them a check, hence why we have...
no.
Right.
Mm-mm.
So, now, I wonder for those, I'm trying to think, if we were to have a MasterCard and Visa, because you're always using Swing Cash as your account, so your AR is always going to have that. If it has to process their refund and then you write them a check, you're reducing cash, but then you're not. I'm trying to think if that would work. But then either way, you need your cash sale to be shorter. Cash refund.
Right.
You know what? What if we use the cash refund option rather than doing, but that seems so many steps because that won't get your, like, you click new for me. And if you, in the type, rather than doing invoice, you have a cash refund, which is going to reduce on hand, like cash on hand.
Right. But is it going to reduce, can we
undeposited
specify,
funds?
if we get it to undeposited funds,
Mhm.
can we reduce the credit card payment from there?
Well, if it's an since MasterCard and Visa hits undeposited funds, anything that hits undeposited fund 2 will essentially reduce that. It'll just, the payment method just won't be called MasterCard and Visa or manual credit card. It'll be cash refund it'll have its own different type. Okay.
Yeah,
as long as it's in undeposited funds is where we need it to be. So that way you don't have to manually remember and key it in as part of your deposit slip.
Exactly.
Okay. Now here, the customer code, you would be using Swing Cash as your customer code, and then you would do your credit. It'll adjust inventory just like a credit memo would.
Okay. So cash refund will reduce
work.
inventory as well. Okay.
Yep, it will. There's that inventory impact that defaults at the bottom. So if there was ever a time that you don't want it to, maybe it's bad, and you want to, I kind of like the idea of inventory being updated all the time. And at the end of your month, that's when you do your adjustments to adjust your inventory for loss or or waste or whatever.
Does that understand? Does that make sense to you?
I think so.
Yeah, you could do it as a cash refund.
But we would only do this in situations with MasterCard, Visa refund. The other situation, we would
if we're going to write them a check,
and then we would put it in as a credit memo to get it back into inventory.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So in that case, you do have to set them up as a vendor too, so that way you can give them back their money.
So we don't have a miscellaneous vendor anymore?
Not in the sense of what you're thinking, but yes, but it's always going. The answer is yes, it does exist with different pay-to records. Now, the problem with you doing it as a credit memo here, then you're going to have to turn around and create the whole offsetting record. You know what I mean? So this cash refund, the credit memo will sit out there. Then you got to remove the credit memo by creating a debit memo, and then create a vendor transaction to write them a check. So that setup is not different. I wonder if you can do a customer code that's the same as your miscellaneous vendor.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, if we could not just choose the miscellaneous vendor
as a customer.
As a customer, so that those cash refunds would just flow into there, and then we could just comment who we paid.
Absolutely, that makes total sense, because if you did you're right, if you did a credit memo, the entity is both vendor and customer. In the receive payment screen, to go back to what you were doing in the screen earlier, if you were to select show AP transactions, it would show it would show all where you can pay them or they can pay you. But yes, that's how I would. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move forward with that. So.
Okay.
All right. And then in the comment, in the comment over there, you could put the name of who you paid. Okay. All right.
And you can do pay to too. So just for the sake of going to that miscellaneous, minimize this for me, and let's go to the purchasing side and go to vendor, like vouchers. I'm sorry, go to vouchers. And we're going to just click new. So the whole miscellaneous, there's not really like a setting in the system anymore where you say, well, this vendor is the miscellaneous. Yep. On the right side, there's that pay to field, and you just click the hyperlink, and then you create the pay to information on the fly. So select your miscellaneous vendor in here.
What's that code?
That may be a problem, because you could only get to that miscellaneous vendor through cash management, right?
No, you can get to it. No, we don't use miscellaneous checks anymore in cash management. They're obsoleting that, so don't use it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So this is our. Could it be under vendor ID miscellaneous and maybe filter by that?
Cash management. Just a minute. Just pull that up.
Oh, you spelled it
It's
wrong.
not-
It's is
yeah.
it M-I?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Uh-uh.
Oh, maybe you don't have one. Well, just for the
Look
sake of
under-
this, just select that one. Yoke.
Yeah.
And then, so let's pretend this is your miscellaneous vendor. Yep, you click Pay To. So it'll take you to the hyperlink. So you're always going to have a historical data for anybody you pay to out of purchasing menu. So just know that. So if you had a miscellaneous vendor, since it'll be, you just click New here, and let's say you're going to pay yourself, or just click Test. Yep. And then you'll have to put the zip code and the freight terms, and it might even ask you for additional fields after we try and save it. There we go. And then save this, and it's closed. So now in that Pay To drop-down selection, you should have all historical Pay To records you've set up for this miscellaneous vendor.
Okay.
And then when it prints, the check will print out to Pay To rather than the vendor code.
So it will have the customer's name on it to pay to. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, that might work. We'll have to play with that.
Okay.
Cash management.
No. So the miscellaneous, usually we had to do a miscellaneous check in cash management. That's the only way you could get to it.
So now I'm not going to be able to do those this time?
Probably not. Yeah, we'll just have to set up a miscellaneous vendor and do a pay to. We'll look at that.
So is this the same issue that you were telling me about with cash clearing, where I won't do a cash clearing entry anymore?
No, well,
That's different.
that's kind of what this is kind of the same thing here. That cash refund, like the ACH refund,
Yeah.
a lot of what you've been doing with those checks, that's going to be what that is. The
And
Misc
It
refund
just
and
happens
stuff.
on the AP side, and I don't
yeah,
do anything on the AR
Yeah,
side.
it makes the whole journal entry.
Then it'll wash it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. But some of the refund checks we might have to do like this. Okay. All right.
All right. We just talked about it. On the invoicing screen, what is the ship date for? Should we keep it the same as the invoice date and post date? Definitely keep it the same as the invoice date. So the shipping would be if, I don't know why they would be different, maybe just a day, a delay in date. But the ship date is when the product is going out. The invoice date is the due date is based off of the invoice date. So I think normally you would have your ship date and your invoice date as the same date, but not necessarily the post date, because if your period's already closed, you may not be able to use your GL date as your original date. Anything to do with the sales analysis report or grid, the transports module or the motor fuel taxes, all of that is based off of the invoice date. So as far as that's concerned, we don't care when your GL date is, but we do care about your invoice date. So let's say it's already the 22nd today. You forgot to put in an invoice for a customer. You choose the invoice date of last month, so that way it's in the right period for tax purposes, so you can go ahead and pay for it. But you're like, you know what, I understand that it's already last month, but I've already showed the financial statements to the board, so you can only use today's date for that. So that's why they're different. But as far as the ship date, I guess there's a chance that you could have it different, but in the case of reports, it's always going to be the invoice date. The ship date may be in grid, but it doesn't drive like postings or reports necessarily, like for motor fuel taxes. All right, so the pop-up for prepays. In Origin, there's not such a thing. It always was saying, you know what, if you have a prepay out there, I don't want you to tell me, I just want you to apply to it. In I-21, you have an option to go either always auto apply or don't. So what this is doing is before we talk about the pop-up, let's talk about that. Do you want the system to auto apply prepays? It does follow a hierarchy. So let's say that you have a contract that's prepaid. The system knows it's a prepaid contract because there's an actual indicator and a setting in there that says this prepay only belongs to contract 1. You're a customer and you just got a delivery and you have a prepay on this delivery. It'll apply it against that specific prepay and not just, in Origin, it didn't care. A prepay is a prepay. If a customer has 2 different prepays, it's always going to apply it to the oldest prepay until it's used up. In I-21, it knows that, hey, this delivery is under a contract. The contract is under a prepay, and it's all still valid, and there's balances. It's going to apply it against that automatically. Now, if it doesn't find if a delivery is done in I-21, even if there is a prepay, but it doesn't fit that specific prepay, then it won't apply it to it. But you still won't get the pop-up. So that's the difference. There is a hierarchy it's following. I turned it off just so we can kind of talk through and see if that's how you want it to work. Because again, in Origin, it didn't care. It just applied it to the oldest one, and regardless whether that was for that contract or not. Then you had to adjust credits and adjust prepays to just get it all back in balance. So having it turned on in I-21 is okay to just auto-apply. Because let's say on a contract that's prepaid for $1,000, if that contract is, let's say, done, like it ended July 21st, but they still have money left over, at that point, the next time they do a delivery, since they're still prepaid, it's not just going to sit out there. It's just going to auto-apply to that one, assuming it doesn't fit towards another prepay. So it comes back to like it's just a regular credit at that point. But if you did say yes to that, if we say, you know what, no, I want to be able to say or determine which invoice to apply that prepaid to, if you say yes to that, there is a prepaids and credit memos tab, and then you select which prepays, assuming the customer has more than one, or if they just have one. If you click that prepaids and credit memos, it'll show you all the prepays for that customer. So then you can tell it, hey, you know what, I want to apply all of it to this prepay or a certain amount. But again, I think since we've done so much with prepays and contracts in I-21, it's safe to just say yes and let the system follow the prepays based on its hierarchy.
Okay,
So
like right now there are companies, and I understand what you're saying with the budget customers, and that'll be fine for them. But there are companies that if we end up applying, if they have a credit on their account, like there's a company right now that has a $1,000 credit on their account, let's say, and they've got invoices, but when they send in the check for that invoice, it's a duplicate payment or something. There was something wrong, and that payment doesn't have an invoice to be applied to. So I don't want to apply that invoice necessarily apply that payment to invoices that are sitting on the account, because they may come back and say, this was a duplicate payment and we want a refund for it, or they want to tell me when they want to apply the credit. Whereas if I already go ahead and apply the credit to an invoice, it's just going to get confusing.
Okay. So in that case, you would then, in this case, the way we have it set, where it pops up every time if you want to, is the only way you're going to be able to control that. The flip side of that is that means you're also going to have to put in payments and apply payments at the end of each month for these prepays. So it depends. So let's go with the quickest way where it just auto-applies, making an assumption that you're 90% always right, 10% where a customer is going to call and say, you know what, that is wrong. We can turn it back off, or because these are prepays, you can always unpost a payment and then remove it and then apply it to another one. So because it's just going to be like a $0 payment record. The only thing that's going to control and stop you from doing that is month end, which the entries it'll do is essentially customer prepayment against AR. It's a balance sheet entry on the same top line, so it's all in the asset section. Sorry, asset and liability section. So it's a balance sheet entry. Essentially, it's not changing your net income, but it is going to change your trial balances.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing that you just need to note. But you can easily bring up the transaction for that customer after they send you a check and say, oh, that one was applied to an invoice, unpost it, delete it, put your payment in the way they said. That prepayment will be back out there for you to use on whatever invoice they want. So that's
Okay.
if you want the system to auto apply. And then the other side, like I just said, is you can apply it, but then you're adding month-end process to auto apply credits.
That's what we do now is with the propane accounts, they're the numbered accounts. So I tell it to auto apply and I do the beginning and end for just the numbered accounts, and I have it auto apply there. But then like full accounts the majority of those are the companies that we deal with, and there are still some companies with propane, but they're fewer. The majority of the lettered accounts are companies, and I just don't auto apply to the lettered accounts. I'll go in and manually.
Okay.
So
then in your case, it's you know what? Let's go to you. So you would normally do mass apply, but you select beginning and ending customer or whatever.
Right.
When you're saying lettered, let's close this screen and let's go to receive multiple payments in the sales menu. And I just want to see how you would normally filter. So that way, so you're saying they're numbered accounts.
The numbered accounts are usually for the propane accounts. So I would say between, usually it's like 118.
Between.
Like 118, and then I think there's a 4,000 account for propane that's the larger, or 40,000.
Okay. And then delete the payment. It's probably because you have payment method as an option.
See, that's showing lettered account.
You know what? I wonder if it's thinking it's alphanumeric. So you would filter it by customer number from 118 to 4,000.
Or something like that. There's a specific number that I run an age trial balance, and I get the beginning because it'll run it with the numbers in order and then the letters in order. So I'll pick up the beginning LP account, letter account, and the ending number account, and that's what I run.
Where that drop down is
I don't. You know what? Go back to the 40,000 field. Let's see if it just needs to reload. And then remove your due date too.
I can give you a more specific number if we need it, because I've got it in a folder.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Or just remove the customer number and then sort by customer number, ascending. Like remove the filter.
It's 43,867.
So what it was looking for, I wonder if it's zeros. So filter by customer number between, let's say 0 to 40,000. Not
4867.
43,867.
So it's probably looking like it thinks it's a string and not necessarily a number, like it's characters.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
not like a numerical number. Do the between again for me, and then add the zeros in the front. There's a total of, I think, 10 digits total. Is that 10 total? 2, 4, 6, 8.
Do I have enough?
So let's do that. Let's see if that works any different.
It worked.
Okay.
82 records. Leading to rows.
Scroll down to the bottom and let's make sure all the alphas are gone. Okay.
Cool.
So then from here, you're doing, and then you would auto apply. Omit credits, okay, auto apply credits. But then you would still like select which ones you want to auto apply, if that makes sense. You would like do select all or however you want to, because it needs to know what you're, assuming they even have credits. But let me go through that whole process. You can test it, but let me go through that process here just to make sure.
We've got a session coming up, and we can probably just cover it then, because this is part of me running statements.
Okay. See here. Let me just do a screenshot. All right. So let me go back to our email. Oh, I think that was the last one on that email.
I have a question from a previous email that I don't pick up. It was when we're invoicing, I always use the delivery ticket total as the correct amount since a copy of it is left with the customer. How do we handle a variance in I-21 between the delivery ticket total and the I-21 total when we want to use the delivery ticket amount?
As your total. Okay. When you are in the sales invoice screen, at the bottom left, all you can do at this point is insert a line for, I don't know if you guys want to call it create an item.
Mhm.
But the only way to adjust that is, since the system is calculating the total, is insert a line at the very bottom of the invoice. So if you had 3 line items, you would just put another one below.
It's like
and maybe you need to create an item, like a variance item code.
Okay.
I think we already have one.
Okay.
Should have one.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's all. So far.
VAR. Bars all variable. Okay, I'll look for that. Maybe something else.
Any questions, Bill? One question, and I can't remember, I know we've talked about it, is transferring credits between accounts. Is that on the next?
It is on one of,
Yeah. And we briefly discussed this during one session, Conception, where the next Pick Quick, they have 16 locations, and sometimes 2 or 3 locations will have credits, and they want us to move those credits to other accounts that have balances.
Mm-hmm. On those scenarios, you can't really transfer like a customer record to another customer record. You will have to do like a debit memo using a GL account number and then create a credit memo for the other customer, because there's not an adjust invoice credit balance process.
You actually have items if you'll type in transfer credits or something like that.
I know there's a LPGTRA.
Yeah, so we can just
LP
change
transfer.
names on those. It's not a big deal, but it's basically, just transfer balances, and that's what we'll have to do. Credit memos on one and invoices on the other to get it to where it needs to be.
Right.
So,
because prior, I think you guys were doing adjust credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then you were creating a payment record. So either way, you were creating two records. Now it's just in a different spot.
Okay.
Okay.
One and debit the other.
All right. Anybody else got any questions before I start? Okay, Conception, I've got a couple of questions that in playing in transport. How would we set up new drivers? I've looked several places, and when I hit the drivers hyperlink, it takes me to entity, but then I don't see anything to designate as a driver at a transport.
Let's go into transport.
So what one? Out there. Okay, go into new transport loads or transport loads, whichever. Okay.
I'll let you drive.
Okay. All right.
So Cody, I think, is he a driver? Cody's a driver, right?
Driver. Okay. But what I was planning with the Waccamaw and the Lee Transport people is to go ahead and set just say Waccamaw driver, Waccamaw or Lee driver, so we wouldn't have to know that necessarily. But if I go into the hyperlink, it takes me to the entity. But there's no designate when I. All right, just say if I put Waccamaw. Okay, so there's my Waccamaw stuff. I click on one. Won't matter. Okay.
Actually, what I'm going to have you do is you won't see it here. Go to entity type.
Entity type on right here.
On the entity type tab.
Right here.
Yep. Do me a favor and select salesperson.
Salesperson.
Yep.
Down.
Yep.
Right here. Okay.
And let's go ahead and click outside of the box. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Did it make us put something in the vendor account number? This would be, by the way, your account number with that vendor, if you have one. If not, you got to just start setting something up in there that would be consistent through your system. Go back to entity type.
Okay.
Let's go back to entity type. Let's make sure that salesperson kept.
Okay. No.
Okay.
I got to hit save on it. Let me hit save on it. All right, save.
Okay, now let's go ahead and save. Say yes to this. And then you may have to go, I don't understand why it's like on a second try. So go back to entity type and do salesperson again when you have an existing one.
Yeah.
Oh, it probably doesn't help that. And then select salesperson. I'm just trying to get the grid to pop up. And then save again for me. Like, I don't understand. Huh. And say yes to that again. Okay. So, sorry. Now it actually is there. So minimize this screen, the duplicate entities screen.
Oh.
Oops. Close, or you can close it. We don't need it.
Okay.
And then
right.
close this screen. Okay. You see where you have the salesperson tab available?
Yes.
In there, change that type to driver.
Right here.
It was, yep, it was hiding from you.
I got you. So I have to go to entity and get it to accept the salesperson and go to the salesperson.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. All right, let me get that. So, let's see. All right. The next one. I was trying to put in a load from Apex, any one of the Apex terminals. So of course it was a Motiva load, so I selected Motiva, and from the terminal, it was supposed to be Apex, and anytime I tried to select Apex, it would tell me it was an invalid supply point. But if I selected like a Charlotte, it would accept it.
Okay, so let's go there. And then let's try putting in that load.
Terminal. Okay. Now, all right, now it'll do it this time, I bet you. And it doesn't matter that I just select that bulk load.
It should not for what you're doing, right. It doesn't matter for that bulk location. You may have to put a date in though, too, just in case.
Oh, right here, yeah.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I'll be right back, okay? I'll be right back.
Okay.
And are most of the rest of your questions about transports?
Let me see if I got any. I did work on that ACH we already did. We might go into that a little bit. We'll wait till we get to that one. Yes, I think that's all I got for.
Okay, because I'm going to go back.
Okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I'll have to put a truck. Put in a destination. I was working. But when it tells me it's Concord Builders.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. And does my time here have to match up to my time at the? Oh, it pulled it. Never mind. All right, then receipt 20. That one up there. Unable to do the freight, postal code is set up, Motiva block.
Okay. So do you remember, I think Wei was talking about how the zip code was important when we're doing supply points. So I think that's what it's looking for, but I can't say for sure. So let's say okay here.
Okay, well, let me just say this. This is, but when I say this, this is not, and it may be because I'm using a different Apex terminal, but this is the first time I've got this message. Normally, when I get the message, it's at the point that I have saved and tried to go to the print
and it'll tell me invalid for 5 points. But, I mean, if it's just a zip code, then I can go back and put the zip codes in them.
SC, is that what SC stands for, South Carolina?
Yeah, South Carolina delivery. Oh, that's North Carolina delivery. I see. Well, let me find
And
it.
even on the top, yeah, for receipt,
Let's try
South Carolina.
Okay, hold on, let me get the North Carolina one. That was, here's in North Carolina. Was Gas, Brandon, Resource. Right here. This is the one I was using pretty much. All right, am I gonna lose anything if I do this?
Just, it looks like your gross units aren't there, but I don't know if it's even required to save. It looks like it's not. But let's actually put in something there.
4. All right, so pull.
The tax group didn't update.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh. Let me refresh.
If you do that, it's not. You have since you go ahead.
Okay.
Here.
So I need to change this tax group.
If you search for SUP.
Yeah, right here.
There you go.
All right. So then if I save it. Okay, now. Give me 4. It did give me a price, which was. All right, then save. Freight rate list. Give me a freight rate. 03450.
0241.
All right. All right. Then if I say print, now watch it do it this time. Oh. That's a little bit different from what I had.
Yep. Now that message is because under the FRT item code, 43 is not found in 4301 unit of measure setup. Each is not found. Oh, it's the 4301.
Right. That was another error I got, that each was not found for 4301. But it should be gallons, right?
Yep.
So.
Not found in 4301 unit of measure setup. So click the 4301, like where you can click the, I think the header record. It should be in there though. Oh, each is not. It is not gallons because if the freight is set, we have it set as each. I don't think we have it set as gallons. So it's looking for unit of measure for freight. Okay. Well, let's go. If you go to the purchase item column heading under 4301, can that and I think it'll allow you to open the item. So like, yep, and then click the header record. Sorry. There you go. And then click open item. Now what we can do is when we do freight, it maybe needs to be set to gallons and not each, because that's what your freight is based. Do you have any freight that's non-gallon related?
Lubes will have
oh, okay. Okay.
Well,
okay. So then it's okay.
Amount. So lubes will have amount.
Oh, gotcha. So really on those two examples, transports is handling, we may end up having to do two. You have a different freight for lubes though, don't you? I thought I saw another freight method in there. But
yeah, there is an FRT-OUB, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then one way is when we go live is switch freight to gallons and then have your other freight to each when depending on what you're buying and you're selling. So what this one is looking for is under the gallon, you need to select each also. Okay. So that way it knows you can tie it to that. But that's probably not the right thing to do. We probably need to just switch freight to gallons instead of each.
All right. So, go through here.
Yep, close that.
Okay.
Now the problem is we've used freight in other postings already, so
Yeah.
I don't know if we could change it.
Yeah, anyway,
We can just do a transport freight or a
yeah, we could do that.
freight TRP.
Yeah, I could just add that to the main header on that thingy. All right,
If you do decide to change your freight item for transports, just make sure you either let me know or change the company config for transports, because it's defaulting to FRT because we have it linked to FRT. So.
Okay. Is there any other reason?
I'm trying to think if we've used freight on any other type of invoicing.
If we've already got a lube set up, then the FRT should work for all the liquid products.
When we charge freight to a customer, like if we charge, for some reason, stem cells to something and we need to charge freight, would we use that FRT?
We could use the lube one.
When I bill freight to Carol's because
they're
Huntley's,
Yeah.
that is just a flat amount.
I don't think we want to mix the lube FRT.
Well, I might could do.
Rate on stuff, he rolls it into
the price.
That's the way Tim's brain works
And that's fine.
traditionally.
Well, a lot of
Yeah,
places
that's
do that, though. That's okay,
Mhm.
but you don't necessarily show it
For those Carols, I'm going through sales tickets.
and do it freight.
Uh-huh.
And that would be.
And so if we put gallons
Well,
there, that would miss.
Yeah, but freight's not a counted item now, is it?
It is not. It's considered an other charge.
So if she put gallons in a freight charge on an invoice, it's not going to count it anyway. Right?
Well, it's not going to count it as gallons. It's going to count. It'll calculate it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it'll figure it as. Yeah, that will work.
If you just put one,
Huh?
but if you just put one, regardless of whether it's gallons or
Yeah,
it'll still work,
Quantity one,
and then the
your
total amount,
total
so that
amount.
should still work, wouldn't it?
That would,
Oh yeah, that would
Right,
work.
that would
Yeah,
have to
we
be
do that
out
now.
Yeah, so we could, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine. That's fine. We can do
Okay.
that. All right.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. All right. So what do I need to do anything now with these? Go through and put on those origin setups the.
Just a zip code on the vendor terminals. Yep. Just make sure it's there. It doesn't look like you were missing many. Actually, this is a good tool because supply point, if you click that heading again, it shows you which one doesn't have a zip code. So those should be the only ones you're missing in origin.
Okay.
Like click not the header. That's my fault. Yes, click that one. Yep. You should be able to search for zip code.
All right, I'll go back
so if you sort it.
All right, I'll go back to find those and go ahead and put those in. All right?
Okay, and you don't need to do it in live. Just do it in. Sorry, you need to just do it in origin because it'll come board over.
All right. Very good. All right.
Awesome.
Those are. I figured that out. Let's see. I did find the diversion thingy under miscellaneous, so we need to get that.
Way told me about it. So, but then the tax is still, I was like, hey, where's that diversion? But he's like, yeah, it's in the transport load. I was looking for the diversion tab, but it's in miscellaneous.
All right. So, we'll probably need to see how that works so we can, that'll just put it on the report, right?
Correct. But then on the receipt side, you still need to put in there what the taxes was going to be charged to you. So like the tax group, the whatever tax group is going to get charged to you on your invoice is what you need in the details tab.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's about all I've got right now.
Okay, awesome.
I'll work on the zip codes.
Okay.
All right.
How are you, overall, how are you guys feeling as far as, I know we have talked in the past about potentially moving to 19.1 earlier, so that way we can go ahead and start converting some of the data, preferably not obviously it'll be up to you guys, but a few days prior than us actually going live, so I can go ahead and start converting, and we're not waiting hours for you guys to start putting data in. But overall, how are you guys feeling? I know we've done a lot of training, and I know you guys have done some testing, and so how are you feeling? Because that's like in a couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean,
I think everybody's been in at least a little bit to see what's going on.
Yeah.
I know Lisa's been the one that pretty much has had to just kind of stop and wait to see what else needs fixing with the transport stuff.
Right. Now, for the transport stuff, for the transports loads, I know that what we're waiting on is the whole unit is the gross and net for freight. But even with that, and I talked to Way about it, and we're gonna go ahead and fix that. But we can even use the amount, which is what you're currently doing now. So as far as like the workaround, we can, instead of you putting in, we can work around it for a little bit. Yes, until we get that, because I'd hate to make that as a blocker when it's really not blocking us, and then have it not fully tested. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So.
Yes, and we could, as long as we've got a workaround, we'll be good. Okay.
Okay. All right, and then and part of the goal of me trying to convert part of the pieces too is we can do it in the live environment, do the setup up to a point where we can get as much in there as possible, not beginning balances obviously, because that'll change. We can copy over the live environment into a test environment as is and start putting transactions in there just to make sure it is, the setup is what we need. So that's the value of trying to do it a week before, so then we can keep updating live and then copying it over and retesting it in test, and then keep changing the setup. So that was my goal and why I wanted to do it earlier.
That's fine. And it's all going to be new anyway. We're going to be looking for anything that's going to pop up anyway.
Right. I'm not worried about origin. As for say, like, let's say origin, like, processes, only because nothing's changed there. And I'm not going to turn on any integration in the live environment, because that's what's going to be required when I do parts and pieces. What we'll do is just do the setup that's not integration, and then copy it from O1 to TE, and then turn on integration there, and then do the testing.
Okay.
But that also means that when calls come in, even for origin, I'm going to watch it like a hawk, because I don't want anybody going into company locations in I-21 and then having it mess up origin. So I may end up taking some of your support calls when that time comes, even for origin. So, all right. Well, if you guys have any questions, you email me. We'll talk tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.